International Men's Day, November 19th, is a global occasion to celebrate the positive contributions and diverse experiences of being male. On International Men's Day 2010, we're talking with Dr. Warren Farrell, author of 7 books including The Myth of Male Power and one of the world's leading experts on gender issues. One of the themes of International Men's Day is celebrating men's contributions to childcare. In the 5th and final video of this series, Dr. Warren Farrell talks about the positive outcomes for children from having fathers intimately involved in their day-to-day care.
First of all, let me just be clear about there's 2 areas here. One is outcomes, and the other one is why. I can share with you, and I will, what happens when children have fathers that are very involved. Those are outcomes. Really good data backs up that portion of father and child reunion. I will then share with you some reasons why I believe that is the case. I believe you'll find those will make a lot of sense, but they can be argued with because all reasons why can be argued with. Okay, so children do better in about 26 different areas of measurement when they have when fathers are more involved versus less involved. They do significantly better when children are raised primarily by their dads. They actually do better than children raised primarily by their moms. This does not mean, though, that men are better as fathers than women are as mothers, because when people want to do something, when they self-select themselves to do something, they tend to have more motivation to do that and so on. It would be like a woman in the 1950s self-selecting to become a doctor. The chances are she would be a very good doctor, probably better than the average male doctor. And so for those types of reasons, children who are raised with significant father involvement are far less likely to get pregnant out of wedlock during teenage years. They're far more likely to get married and not be divorced. They're far more likely to do better in all academic areas, no exception, especially in their SATs. Or the equivalent of the college admissions test. I don't know if they're called SATs in Australia. They're far more likely to do better in all physical health areas. They're less likely to be sick from school. They're all the way to going to a hospital. They're far more likely to do better in social areas, like getting along better with other children, not getting into fights, not being bullies, or not being bullied. They're more likely to be liked by children, other peer group children, and be liked and respected by teachers and adults and other evaluators of their social skills. They're much more likely, and this is the most amazing thing, children raised with significant father involvement are significantly more likely to be empathetic. Now, this is the thing that most surprised me. And yet study after study around the world that measured the impact of empathy and measurements of empathy show that children with significant father involvement are far more empathetic. Now, my bias in starting the research was that women, as a rule, tend to be more empathetic than men are. So how do you get more empathetic children when there's a significant father involvement? And the reason seems to be that most high school teachers see this. They have a very empathetic child in school that's really lovely, and then they meet the parents, and the parents might be an engineer or a tough love dad, or tough love parents, and but yet the child is very empathetic. Then you get a very self-centered narcissistic child, and you meet the parents on parent night, and you find these parents that are lovely, they're giving, they're empathetic. And what you start to understand is that empathy is not engendered by receiving empathy. Empathy is engendered by having to think of other people's needs. So if the father and the mother are requiring things of you, they're tough love dads, they're tough love moms, they're forcing you to think of somebody else other than yourself. If every time you do something, they're empathetic, no matter what you do, and even when you're not responsible, and when you don't say what you're going to do, what you say you're going to do, then you don't have to become empathetic to anybody's needs and feelings but yourself. So you become self-centered and narcissistic, and that's why the teacher is so shocked to see this self-centered and narcissistic child. When they meet the parents, they were their favorite parents on parent night. And so that's just an example. Another example is that children who are raised significantly by dads are far more likely to be assertive, but much less likely to be aggressive. And so the social skills of children raised by both parents are significantly likely to be much better. And one of the reasons is that men tend to require things of their children. Women tend to empathize with their children and protect their children. And so, for example, when a father and a mother are both, and here's an example of why it's so valuable for a mom and dad to work together and to be home together and to be in an intact family if possible. Let's say the child in an intact family says, Mom or Dad, can I climb the tree in the backyard? And the mom will be more likely to say, well, maybe, sweetie, in a few years, it's kind of a dangerous tree, but in a few years, yes, but not right now. And dad will say, oh, he or she is old enough to climb the tree. Don't worry about it. Don't baby the child. And the mom and dad get into an argument. And mom says, you're risking the child's life. And the father says, if the child doesn't learn how to take some risks and do things and watch out for himself, or you'll overprotect the child, and the child will never be able to be an adult. And so the fight goes on. But eventually that fight may resolve itself by something like the mother saying, okay, you can have the child climb the tree, but only the first 3 levels of branches and not that branch over there because it's there. And you can't be out there with your cell phone. Here, I'll take the cell phone. You go out there, you make sure and then when that cell phone rings, I'll make sure you're still, and you stand under the tree all the time and protect the child. Now, what's the child gotten? The child's gotten risk-taking skills. Risk-taking skills connect synapses that wouldn't otherwise connect, that increases IQ, that increases and changes shape and size of brain, we now know, and only from relatively recent research, that no father says to the mother, by helping that child take those risks, that child will have increased IQ, better development in that type of way. And the mother, at the same time, the child's gotten more protection as a result of the mother's involvement. And so the argument that comes between the mother and the father that may lead to a divorce because the father and mother each feel the other one is hopeless was actually a functional argument. The argument was like the checks and balances of an Australian conservatives and liberal parties, arguing against each other. So just like it takes two or multiple parties to run a government, it takes at least two parents with different points of view, and their tension, they have to understand that their tension is a tension that is meant to be, that it's checks and balances on each other's tendencies to overdo the tendency of men to say push, 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 push. And when you fail, get up and do it again without having time to empathize with and let the child cry. And the mother's tendency to say, well, if you fell off the chair or you fell off the horse or you fell off the ski on the ski slope, you don't ever have to ski again. You don't ever have to ride again if you don't want to.
Before you go, Warren, could you tell us a little bit about your current work?
Sure. I'm working with John Gray, the author of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. He and I are working together on a book called Boys to Men. And then the White House Council, we're working a proposal. I've created a commission of 30 thought leaders around the country to create a White House Council on Boys to Men. That proposal is being worked through many channels at both the White House and other places as we speak. And so that's I have to sort of keep that under wraps for a while, but only of which is to say there is a White House Council on Women and Girls, and we're hoping that there will also be one that recognizes that instead of just caring about whales, we'll also care about males in the future.
Fantastic. All right, Warren, it's been a great pleasure talking with you for International Men's Day 2010. Thank you so much for taking your time to share your thoughts with us, and all the best with your work for the future.
It's my privilege to be able to do so, and I really appreciate the enormous work and coordination of bringing awareness to boys and men's issues around the world. You're doing a great service, and a service to our sons and therefore to the global economy.
Thank you very much, Warren.
You're very welcome.